The NFL draft is now complete, and it was a blast. But the one element that takes place before the draft, during the draft, and now after the draft is how all of these players have been evaluated. Everyone views them a little bit differently, and opinions are shared about every player that was drafted and when they were drafted. What about in our own lives? Every day we face this tension of people having opinions about us, people evaluating our lives. How do we respond? How do we deal with that? Let's unpack it. Welcome to the Unpacking It podcast, where we unpack parallels, metaphors, and topics in sports that relate to life and faith. I'm Bryce Johnson in Mount Holly, North Carolina, joined in studio by my producer, Aaron Bennett. And we are also joined today by guest co-host Nate Salley, coming to us from South Carolina. And Nate Salley has been a longtime member of the Unpacking It family and has been on this show many times, and psyched to have him on today to talk NFL draft. He is a former Ohio State Buckeye, and so we will get his thoughts on all the Buckeyes that were drafted, or at least a few of them, because there's so many to talk about. But he's still riding the big national championship as well. But he's also a former Panther, so we'll get his thoughts on the Panthers draft, which, as a Panther fan myself, I am fired up about the 3 days of drafting led by Dan Morgan. And so I think Panther Nation's pretty excited here following the draft. Thanks to you for listening today. Always appreciate when you leave your comments. What did you think of the draft? How did you feel about your favorite team, or even your favorite university and players that were drafted and where they ended up? Leave those comments wherever you're watching or listening. You can also email me, Bryce at unpackingit.com. Be sure to check out our website, unpackingit.com. And now that the NFL draft is over, NFL is back on our minds and radars, don't forget about Fantasy Football Fellowship. Make sure this season your league is participating in Fantasy Football Fellowship, so check out fantasyfootballfellowship.com. Also, I want to thank our sponsor, Upward Sports. You can go to upward.org/unpack to find out how to start a sports ministry at your church. And the exciting news from Upward Sports is pickleball is now available. That's right. Pickleball is an Upward sport, and it's perfect for middle school, high school. It's easy to learn. It's quick to set up, and one of the best ways to keep kids engaged. And so whether you're looking to start a traditional league or a flexible practice and play format, Upward Sports is here to help you build a strategy that fits your church. Ready to get started? Schedule a call today and launch a purposeful pickleball ministry in your community. Go to upward.org/unpack. All right, let's say hello to Nate Salley. And you can check out his website, audiblecoachingandconsulting.com. He works with blue-collar executives, coaches them, helps them understand their purpose and their desire to make an impact in their businesses. He comes alongside them in a great way. And what's pretty cool, the Carolina Panthers just drafted a safety, Lathan Ransom, out of Ohio State with the 122nd pick. Nate was the 121st pick years ago. Nate, great to have you on, man. How you doing?
I'm glad to be here, man. Glad to be here. Yeah, that was a long, long time ago, but yeah, brought back some good memories, man. Seeing him get picked up by us, and I'm excited to see what he brings to the team.
That's right. What year were you drafted?
2006.
All right, there it is.
It's kind of crazy. 19 years now. Oh my goodness.
Gosh, that's awesome. Well, so what was this year's memory from that you maybe thought back on when you were drafted that you thought about in recent days?
Yeah, I think every year when the draft comes around, you just kind of remember what that felt like, being that kid. You think you're an adult, but you're still a kid, you know what I mean? Just kind of living this dream, right? And you have this dream coming to fruition that you worked your entire life for, at least a big chunk of your life for. And to get that call and to have a team, welcome you on board is one of those things that you just dream about. You dream about seeing your name come across the bottom of the screen, and some guys get a chance to actually walk on that stage. So every time the draft comes around, it's a reminder of, how awesome that time and that moment was. And, I'm just extremely grateful to be a part of that. You realize that not a lot of folks will ever experience that, right? And not a lot of families will ever get to experience, their sibling or their son getting a chance to get drafted. And you realize how rare that is also. And it makes me appreciate it even more with every year that goes by. So, yeah, man, I'm just excited for these young men and excited to see what they're able to do with the opportunities that they're given, to go out here and continue playing the game that they love. So, yeah.
Absolutely. All right. I want to get into a bunch of things today, but one thing I do want to mention, and you just alluded to it, is here's one of my frustrations about the NFL draft. So I watched a decent amount for 3 days and in and out, and it was fun, and it's a huge production and all that kind of thing. But what I can't wrap my mind around is why more players weren't there to walk on stage. Like, if you're given the opportunity to go walk on stage in front of the crowd, that's your one moment. I appreciate wanting to be with your family and friends, but you're on your couch, you're like shown on TV. It's like, come on, man, be at the draft. It seems like in recent years, guys are declining, not wanting to be there. And help me understand it. What do you make of it?
I think, that's a lot of pressure, man.
It's tough.
Like, unless you know for sure I'm going to be a top 5, top 10 pick, like, Travis Hunter or a guy like that. Like, unless that's rough, man. I think it was with Aaron Rodgers not long ago. You know what I mean? He was in the back room just waiting and didn't get picked until like 20-something pick. And the draft was like super long back then too. So that was a long wait.
Long wait.
And I think that if guys are gonna, I guess they would rather risk if it's gonna happen. If I'm gonna slide, just like Shedeur situation, right? He could have easily been top 5, but he winds up 5th round. Imagine if he's at the draft and what that looks and feels like for him. So I think guys would rather be around family, be in a place where they're comfortable, so that you're not as stressed out about it, adding on to everything else that comes with it also. So I think that, you want to be in the comfort of your own home with your family, man.
All right. So, yeah. All right. It's fair. It's fair. And I appreciate that. And obviously they want to avoid the humiliation or the slide. They don't want to be stuck there and sliding. So I definitely, I get that. But for me, just as a fan watching it and understanding that it is a production and a TV show, the TV show is about the players being drafted. So should they be there? This is all about them. You should be there and be a part of it. So I don't know. That was it. It just sort of jumped out to me this year. Like, wait, where is everybody? Why are this didn't seem right to me. It seemed like there was missing an element. And I'm like, okay, we're not seeing enough guys go up, be interviewed. As annoying as the long walk was, it's all part of the festivities.
No, I can understand that too, for sure. But I think if I was in those shoes too, and it's like, hey, you may be top 5, and you may be second round. I'm like, all right, well, I'm not going.
Well, and as we saw this year too, the wide range of someone's draft sort of spectrum was across. It's just crazy. Guys were, they'll probably be a second rounder, then they slip, or guys reached. Teams apparently, we thought they were reaching, but on their board, hey, guys were second rounders when others thought they were 4th rounders. So
for sure.
Part of the deal. All right, before we jump in more, give us kind of a quick update on Audible coaching and consulting and the work you're doing, and for those listening that may even be interested in your services.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Things are going well. Calling an audible of our own right now, making an adjustment as far as our primary focus. We've been in business for over 7 years now, which is kind of scary how fast time is going by. And we've seen that some of the greatest impact that we've been able to have and the most consistent opportunities that we've had have been within blue-collar organizations, and working with blue-collar executives and helping them to align with their purpose so they can experience more fulfilled personal and professional lives. So that's really becoming our primary focus within the business. Up until now, I've done things at, schools, at sporting organizations, at different types of companies and different types of events. But I'm really gonna, we're really focusing now and honing in on blue collar organizations, dealing with primarily manufacturing and distribution type organizations, and the executives that work within those companies and also their teams, and helping them to develop as best as possible. So that's kind of been our focus, man. I also saw that a lot of individuals who make it to that level in those organizations, my journey aligns well with what they've been through, whether it's, feeling, isolated and feeling like, hey, I've reached a point in my life where a lot of people may not understand or get it, or have someone that can support me, encourage me, hold me accountable. That's been something that's been helpful. Also, when it comes to, feeling like maybe imposter syndrome, feeling like, hey, do I even belong here? Am I capable of performing at this level? I've been there, whether it be in the NFL or even in my life right now, coming out of the NFL, being an entrepreneur, and doing the work that I'm doing. Those are things that I know happens a lot. And also there's a lack of development when it comes to executive leaders within blue collar organizations. As 12% of the executive level leaders within blue collar organizations have reported that they've received structured development, right? Only 12%. So that means 88% are not receiving the development that they need. So there's a void there. And as I've spoken to those organizations and I've been a part of them and coached individuals in those organizations, you see that some of the things that come, as common knowledge or first nature to myself or others that have been in leadership for a while. These are things that are brand new concepts and things to individuals sometimes in these spaces, because they've been, pushed into leadership roles because of their metrics and the things that they've done, not necessarily because they've been the best leader or the best or been equipped to be the best leader. So just like what happens in sports, a lot of times the captain on the team is really the best player, but not necessarily the best leader. Same thing happens in organizations as well. So I'm really passionate about this, man, and excited to make this adjustment and go kind of an inch wide, mile deep focus, and really niche down and make an impact in this industry. So excited to continue this work and making adjustments to my website and my branding. So a lot of things, if you go on my website right now, it may not be up to date, but it's going to be up to date in the next few weeks, and they'll be making some adjustments, and I'm excited to do that. So fired up about it, man.
I love it. It's awesome. You've got a gift for it. And man, even the last time we had lunch a month or two ago, and the encouragement that you gave me and some of the coaching that you gave me meant a lot. So I appreciate it, man. And keep up the great work. So
most definitely, man. I appreciate you as well. Always.
That's awesome, man. All right. So the draft is over, and I'm curious to hear kind of some of your overall thoughts from this year's draft and some takeaways. I know for me, even going into last week and when the draft began, I talked about the running back position and was very intrigued, just the return of the running back position, teams now valuing it. We saw Ashton Genty go early. I expect him to be great in Las Vegas. But then throughout the draft, we saw running backs end up in really good spots where they're going to have an opportunity to start right away. They'll be a part of a committee in a significant way right away. And two of those guys came from your Buckeyes. So I thought Henderson going to New England, I mean, he's in a sweet spot. And I hate to say it, but New England's back. They drafted well. Mike Vrabel's legit. So anyway, they're going to be in good shape. But what were some of your takeaways from the draft?
Yeah, I agree with that too. And it's awesome. Everyone always says that it's a copycat league, right? So you see Saquon Barkley go off and the Eagles win a Super Bowl. And it's like, oh, you know what? We need to start valuing running backs again. So it's exciting to see that. I was obviously very excited to see. I love Travion Henderson and Kenshawn Junkins and what they brought to the table with the Buckeyes last year. And Travion is, arguably the most explosive running back in the country last year. And to see him go to a situation with another former Buckeye, Mike Vrabel, and Vrabel's a Patriot at heart, also the Buckeye at heart, and it just seems like an ideal match as far as what he's going to bring to the table there, as far as with New England, and also with Travion going to have the opportunity to do so. That was exciting, and then just like I said, seeing guys get to see that dream come to fruition. It was tough seeing like a guy like Shedeur slide the way that happened, man. It's like, I've never seen anything like that. I'm 41 years old, and I've been watching football and drafts, since I was probably 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And I've never seen anything like that. I heard Mel Kiper even say, he's like, I've never had a guy that I had as a top 5 player on my board. Like, I've never, in 47 years of doing it, I've never seen this happen before. So it was just, it was tough to watch that. And also to see, where he went. Like, it's not the no disrespect to Cleveland, but it has not been one of the best organizations for quarterbacks ever, right? And it just seems a little, I don't know, this is a little rough to watch that, man, and see what's happening. So but I'm proud of how he responded, and I know that that he has he has a resilience about him that has got him to the level that he's played at. And I think that if anybody is going to be able to come in there and turn the situation like that around, I feel like with his mentality and the talent that he has, that he can potentially do that. So I'm excited to see what comes of it, man. You just never know, why things happen and why they happen the way they do, just like in our lives, man. And but at the end of the day, God knows what he's doing, and I'm excited to see how it all plays out, man, for him in the end of at the end of it all. So yeah.
We're going to get more into the story with Shedeur and pull it out from a bigger standpoint and relate it to our own lives. But I tend to think that what ended up happening, him slipping to the 5th round, is actually going to set him up to have a better career than if he was drafted 2nd overall. I just think it's going to benefit him. The fact that it's humbled him, the fact that now he goes in with really something to prove. When you're drafted top 5, yeah, of course you're trying to prove that you're worth, top 5 pick, but you're going in with all the pressure and the weight and the expectation. And hey, you got to come in and be the franchise guy right away. Now he comes in fighting for just for a roster spot. Yeah, but he's got some talent. Yeah. He's got the pedigree. He's got hopefully the motivation at this point. Nothing's handed to him. You got to go earn it. And I think that's going to be huge for him, because you could argue that things have been handed to him in some ways because his dad's been his coach, and and he's the starter and all that kind of thing. At the other 2 programs that he played at in college. But now he's got it. This is cool. I think he'll embrace it, and I'm embracing it just as a fan.
Yeah. I think he will too. And if you know anything about Dion, like, that's just how he's built. He's not going to run away from a challenge or run away from adversity. It seems like Shedeur is cut from that same cloth. So I do agree with that. But like I said, just the organization and the fact for me is for me, just looking at it outside in, they drafted another quarterback where they could have drafted you. So they really did not want you. You know that, right? So you're going in with a chip on your shoulder, like, even though he said thanks Cleveland for picking, like, it's a chip on my, like, y'all know y'all should have drafted me earlier, right? And so it's an extra, and it's an added chip on your shoulder. But you also know, I know for me as a guy that's that's been in those locker rooms, a lot of the times, like, the team is not gonna give you the most opportunities to make them look like they made the wrong decision, right? So you hope that he's going to get a legit, fair shot, and as far as reps goes and opportunities, and guys on the team are going to see it, like whether he's better than Dylan Gabriel and Joe Flacco or not, how he's slinging the rock, they're going to see it. But you just hope that he gets the legit shot that he deserves. And like I said, all of that on top of being Cleveland, it's like, I thought going late would be great for him if he's ending up in a good situation where, hey, he's maybe the missing link that could maybe get this team over the hump if he plays well. But it's gonna be a lot of work, man. So we'll see, man.
The drama continues in Cleveland, and I mean that QB room is fascinating, because I saw some headline that he joins 2 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, and it's like, oh yeah, all right, Joe Flacco, Super Bowl winner, and then Pickett won with the Eagles last year, and as a backup, and so I mean that's who he's got to beat out. He's got to beat those 2 guys out. But to your point, they've drafted Gabriel first, so they're going to give him more of the opportunity initially. So that's fascinating. And then to think that Flacco was pretty good 2 years ago in Cleveland. Then he left and went to Indy. They didn't bring him back last year, but now they've brought him back. And Flacco at this point in his career, we thought it was over. Like, Flacco, he was sitting at home, and I think he was with the Jets at one point.
QB1 right now.
And now he's sitting there going, all right, now I got to deal with all this drama. It's going to be funny. So
I do like him being there from like a mentorship standpoint, though, for both of those guys, for Dylan and for Shedeur. Just from an experience standpoint, he seems like a pretty level-headed guy from what I've seen from Joe Flacco over the years. He's a good guy to have in there to kind of take guys under his wing. So I like that about the situation. So we'll see how it all plays out, man. It'll work out the way it's supposed to at the end, like it always does, man. So we'll see.
It's wild. And just as a Panthers fan, I mentioned the overall excitement for this draft. I will say, I thought the Panthers would go all defense. I thought the top pick would be a defensive player. And so to get Ted McMillan, T-Mac, as a wide receiver with the 8th overall pick, I was definitely surprised, have had to sort of come around on it. It was actually funny. I was listening to draft coverage going into the draft, and I heard people talking about Ted McMillan, and it wasn't on my radar. I was like, nah, the Panthers aren't getting a receiver. And so now I'm like going back, and I'm going, all right, no, there was some hype. Maurice Jones-Drew spoke really high of him on NFL Network, and so there is some excitement there in the comparisons to Mike Evans. So here's another weapon for Bryce Young. He finished the season strong. So I'm the optimistic side of me is taking over, and I'm glad with the way. Okay, we saw the team draft a wide receiver early, but then they completed it with other defensive players, and so the overall draft good to go. So any other thoughts on that?
I agree with that as well. I think that getting the way Bryce showed up, that second half of last season, man, it was so exciting. I think last year as a Panthers fan and supporter and alum, you know what I mean? Like, you went into last season like with no expectation, like, all right, man, I'll take what I can get. Whatever we can get this year, like, we'll take it, right? But I think the end of last year, like that second half of the season, left a lot of us with a ton of hope and looking like, all right, man, this thing, I can see what, if we made a play here, play there, like it's a whole different season for us. And you saw it's a light bulb go off for Bryce, man, which was so awesome to see. Because you saw it in college and it was in there, but for whatever reason, it wasn't clicking and he was a little off. But then like something switched when they brought in Andy Dalton over him. And they benched him for that game or two. And something went off where it's like, man, I remember having this feeling even when I was in college, battling for a starting spot as a freshman. As a sophomore, I was battling for a starting spot, and I was thinking too much. I was in my head. I wasn't playing. And then when I got to the point, I was like, man, I know how to play football. I'm just going to go out here and have fun and play the game just like I did when I was a kid in Little League and just play ball. It changed everything for me. And it feels like something like that happened with him when he got benched. It's like, man, like it's already as bad as it can get for me right now. So why not just go out here and fling this ball around and have fun and do what I know what I can do. So I was so excited to see that and see him show up in big moments and like have, potential game-winning drives throughout that towards the end of the season against top-notch teams. And so I'm excited. So for us to get another weapon for him, that leaves me very excited. And, the Panthers defense has been fairly consistent over the years. You know what I mean? Like we do a solid job on the defensive side of the ball. And I feel like, we brought in some good pieces as far as the defense goes. So I'm coming in with some expectation this year, man. I'm looking forward to seeing what we do. And I think we're going to, I don't think our division is, something that anybody's a clear-cut favorite, maybe Tampa because they had a solid year last year. But all in all, man, like it's still up for the taking. And, I wouldn't be surprised if we found a way to win the division this year. You know what I mean? So I'm excited to see what we're able to put together for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point. The defense was bad last year for the Panthers, but overall, the Panthers are known for having a good defense. And so, of course,
consistently,
with Dan Morgan running the front office there, he's one of those great linebackers in Panthers history. So he knows what it takes. That's for sure.
Definitely.
So, all right. Fun draft and a lot of exciting new players entering in, and as a fantasy football guy, I'm excited to draft some of these guys in fantasy football now. But I wanted to talk about this overall kind of element of the NFL draft that happens every year, and then we saw it highlighted in a big way with Shedeur Sanders. But the reality is, every player that is wanting to be drafted is evaluated, judged, examined, and there is an opinion associated with every player. And sometimes those are differing opinions. And we listened to the analysts, for 3 days, months leading up to, but then during the draft coverage, they're sharing their opinions and their evaluations of these players. And, we hear these terms, talent evaluators and draft analysts, and that's what takes place. And then ultimately, the decision makers are the ones who, they factor in the opinions of scouts and coaches and other front office members, and they make the call. and their opinion is, all right, this guy's worthy of this pick, and we're going to take him, or we're going to pass on this guy because of an opinion on these certain players. And what goes into the evaluation too is how players present themselves, how they come across, how they're perceived by the media, by fans, by ultimately the decision makers. But the perception plays a big role in this. And so it all comes down to the draft is all about, what does someone think of you? What is their opinion of you? How do they view you? And in many ways, these players have, a responsibility. It's a part of the process that they have to come across a certain way. And what was fascinating listening to the Shedeur story is, you had guys like Mel Kiper who perceived him to be a top quarterback. And then we realized, the NFL does not view him as a franchise quarterback. And so he slips all the way to round number 5. And now all of a sudden people are attacking Shedeur in all these different ways and giving their opinions. And what it comes down to, though, is I think it's fair to say, hey, Shedeur, the way you came across affected your draft status. And for other guys, it benefited them. A lot of guys were drafted for the way they came across as a leader and character and all that kind of thing and humility. And the question marks surrounding Shedeur and how he was perceived because of his relationship with his dad or how Deion comes across, all that factored in. And, right or wrong, and maybe he was misjudged and all that. But it did matter. How he was viewed did matter. And so before we jump into the spiritual ramifications, what do you make of the importance of how these players are viewed and ultimately how you were viewed one day back in the day?
Yeah, I love it, man. I think the biggest thing when it comes to this, man, is like I said, when I was getting drafted, I thought I was a man, but I was still a kid, right? And I still had a lot of learning to do. I didn't really know who I was, especially outside of the game of football. And the thing that I think that a lot of times, NFL is what it is, but I think NFL plays on that, right? They plays on knowing that these are young men that would do anything that they can to be a part of this league, right? And that's leverage that they have, and they use it oftentimes, right? And the thing that I love about the Shedeur situation is he knows who he is. His dad knew who he was when he came into the league. He's like, hey, you're either going to accept it or not. But I'm not conforming to be a certain way just because you want me to. I know who I am, and I'm not wavering on that, right? I know my belief system, and I'm not wavering on that, no matter. So if you want to slide me to the 5th round, cool. So I know who I am, right? And I can stand firm at the end of the day and be confident that I did everything that I could. And I didn't deter or get off track of who I know I am and what I should be doing. So for me, that's what I hope. I hope a lot of young men take away from this whole situation too. And as they go into this draft and even go into their careers, that they don't make the NFL an idol in their lives. They don't make their team an idol. You know what I mean? I really hope that a lot of these young men are learning and understanding who they are and what value they really bring, right? Beyond just being a ball player, right? Because a lot of times when you're a part of the NFL and you're in this position, they want if the NFL isn't necessarily top priority, and they don't, and you don't make them feel like they're top priority, they'll put you on the back burner, right? So, like I said, I'm proud of Shedeur for that, for not wavering on that, and a lot of young people don't. A lot of people will waver on their morals or whatever. Like at the end of the day, he's a great kid, a 3.9 GPA, never had any issues off the field. Like, if you don't like his confidence, like that's maybe something is wrong with your confidence, right? Maybe you're not confident enough in who you are that is making you uncomfortable. And that's what Deion does. Deion has always done. He's always kind of shook things up because he's very confident and firm in who he is. And I think that's a big takeaway for me. And this is, I really hope a lot of these young men like go into these careers like understanding who they are and not wavering on that, not allowing any thing to tempt them to step outside of who they are, who they should be, who God has called them and created them to be. So I really hope that they stand firm on that, man. So that's kind of a big takeaway for me, because
Oh,
I don't know if I would have had the guts to do it at that age, right? At 23 years old, 22 years old, when I was coming into the league, if I was mature enough to be like, no, I know y'all drafted me and everything, but at the end of the day, y'all drafted me because I earned my way here. Y'all drafted me because y'all thought I was better than the other guys that were available. Like, y'all didn't give me anything. I earned this. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm bringing value here as well, right? So I think that a lot of times, like, oh, thank you so much. Like, you gave me this opportunity. Like, no, if I couldn't play, you wouldn't have drafted me. I earned this, right? Like, and God gave me an ability, like, to come here and to do this. And I have to take that even into the work that I do now. Like, because like I said, that imposter syndrome, that little dude on your shoulder can be like, man, you're not good enough. Let me tell you, you can go out here and talk to these people about this and that. And like, no, like, God has given me a journey and he has me here for a reason. I didn't get here by chance, right? And I didn't get here on my own. God put me here. I really believe that, right? So if he put me here, I can't do anything to really mess it up, right? I just have to trust him and keep stepping in faith each and every day and trusting him. So I just hope these young men walk with that level of confidence, knowing that, especially those who are believers, that they're stepping into this, with a major advantage of faith and trusting in God and knowing that, who he is and who he's called them to be, and not wavering on that at all. So, yeah.
No, a lot of good stuff in there, and
Yeah.
and I think multiple things can be true, and that's especially as we parallel this to our own lives. But I want to read two quotes. One from Deion Sanders, where he said, "You've got to understand when that last name is on your back, you're going to be attacked and ridiculed by naysayers." And so we understand the Sanders. All right, they're out front, they're in the mix, and people don't like it, and so they get attacked and criticized. We understand that aspect. And then this kind of along the lines of what you were saying, Shedeur Sanders says, I'm going to just be myself, so you either like it or you don't. Okay, so there's something to be said about that. Where I'll maybe push back a little bit with what you were saying, Nate, is I think there still has to be this level of humility. And it's challenging because we want to walk in confidence. But we have to be humble. And this point today, as far as how you come across and how others view you, it still matters. And so because there was some of this negativity attached to Shedeur, he experienced a slide in the draft because how he came across in interviews, how he came across in the team interviews, but also in interviews in media, right? And press conferences and stuff like that. Things that Deion said in the media. It led to people having a perception of them, right or wrong, but it affected how people interacted, viewed, and ultimately decided not to draft him or to draft him. And so, to me, all three can be true. That, okay, maybe you need to make some adjustments so that you come across a little bit maybe differently to maximize your opportunity here in the NFL. And maybe there's some maturing and growing and all that. And all of us have to experience that, right? But then I love the attitude of, hey, I know who I am. This is who I'm going to be. And if, people don't necessarily like it, that's part of the process. Okay, fine. And then also understanding, hey, as a Sanders we're player person, we're going to be attacked. So all those can be true. Is that fair?
No, I think it is, man. I think that, it's something that comes with the territory. You know what I mean? I think what you mentioned, I think definitely, those situations where, hey, if I get an opportunity to go interview, like I want to show up, is put my best foot forward, no matter who it is, right? And not come off as I'm, kind of being very, I guess, passive to this particular opportunity, because it's maybe not where I want to be. So I think that's definitely a big part as well, and something that we can take away from this. And I think that's something that Shedeur and Deion maybe have learned through that situation too. Is, hey, like, maybe that's something we could have done better as they look back at it. And then the other side, like you said, I think the other side can be true too, right? The fact that, hey, I am firm in who I am and confident in who I am, that may rub some folks the wrong way. And I think the biggest part is, like, where do we draw the line with that, right? And I think as we're going to dive into our faith, right, as believers, like, all right, we want to live life in a way that honors and glorifies God and that draws people closer to him and not, like, propels them away from him. but like, where's the line? Like, where's the line where it's like, all right, I'll bend a little bit here to be able to have that be the case. But at what point is it too much? You know what I mean? So I think that that's always like something that we're always praying for discernment, when it comes to that, you know what I mean? And how to go about doing that the best way possible. Yeah.
Well, that's the key today is the
Yeah.
tension that we feel as followers of Jesus, and multiple things are true. We're going to look at different scriptures that
Mhm.
paint this picture for us. But
Mhm.
the one thing as followers of Jesus is we want to realize that our number one priority is living, for God and how he views us and how he knows our heart. And so we're not
Yeah.
living to please other people. It's not about
Yeah, for
other
sure.
people's opinions. It's about God's opinion of us. That's what matters the most, right? And
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
we can declare as Paul does in Galatians 1:10, for am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? Or am I trying to please man? If I were still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
that said, and that's true, it's
Yeah.
also true that as we live our lives, we want to represent Jesus in a
Yeah.
way that people are drawn to us, that people
Yeah,
want
for sure.
to understand. We talked about this last week. They want to understand the hope that we have, but they want to understand why we act differently and why we respond differently and why we have the confidence that we do. Where does that confidence come from? And so the tension is not to be so caught up in, oh, what does everyone think of me? And I got to come across as a certain way and put on a front and I've got to please people. No, but we do want to come across in a way that is, people would respect us, that people would show us favor, that people would speak well of us. Like there should be a desire for that where we don't come across as arrogant, self-righteous, not having compassion, not having love. Well, then we're not representing Jesus. We're not living as Jesus lived. And now all of a sudden it's like, because it's always interesting where it's like people are talking about people that claim to be Christians and they go, oh, that guy's a jerk. Well, that's not good. Well, then he's not representing well. And so,
Yeah.
so how we're viewed by others does matter. How we're viewed by outsiders matters. And so Colossians 4:5-6 encourages us to be wise in the way you act toward outsiders. Make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. And back to your discernment too. Knowing how to respond and how to act and how to talk with people. So there's a tension there, as you talked about.
it
There's
is.
no question about it.
Yeah, it is, man. It is. And I think ultimately, like there's two words that come to mind whenever I get into one of these situations. Like, man, what I do is like please God, right? When I say please God, like am I thinking, am I behaving, am I speaking, am I treating others, am I showing up in a way that is going to please God at the end of the day? And I think that's what's most important. And I think sometimes, just like when we talk about perception, things can be, perceived in the wrong way, right? Just like obviously with Jesus, Jesus was, misunderstood as much as anyone. Obviously, you have Pharisees that are, trying to live by a specific law and everything to a T. And Jesus came and did things and shook things up and did things in a different way. And he could have easily been seen as all disrespectful and doing things, because of how he did it. But I think at the end of the day, he still did it in a way that was ultimately striving to honor and glorify God. Whether they saw it in that moment or not, it wasn't for them to necessarily, I guess, understand and get it. But he knew that he was doing it in a way that was set to honor and glorify God and bring others closer to him. And he knew what he was here for. So I think that, again, there's that tension, right? Of like, at what point am I willing to bend enough so that someone can feel comfortable? But is comfort really the best thing? Because we don't grow in comfort. And sometimes we need to get a little uncomfortable. Maybe something inside of you needs to be shaken up a little bit so you can now grow and maximize your potential as well. So I don't know. I think it's a tricky conversation. It's a tricky situation because at the end of the day, even when we're talking about even Shedeur, Dion, even ourselves, only we know, right, who God has called us to be when we're truly connected to him, right? Only we know, what he's calling us to do, how he's calling us to show up. And I think that, sometimes if we get so caught up in, hey, is this being seen as the way God is telling me to do it? You have to not care about it to a certain extent. You have to really just, God, I want to please you. And I trust what you're putting on my heart. And I trust that even though this may come off as a certain way right now, at the end of the day, it's going to bring you the most glory at the end because this is the way that you're calling me to do it. So it's tricky, man. But I think that, that's where that discernment, but ultimately that consistent communication, consistently connecting and being in God's word, you know what I mean? Consistently and really connecting with him on an intentional and an intimate basis, man, is very important and paramount for us as believers, because us as believers, we're seeing, we're not comparing it to Jesus and being a Christian as far as the standards, but having that standards on their back, just like when we say we're a Christian, it's something on our back too. We're seen a certain way, right? And we're expected to show up and be a certain way all the time. So I think that it's a tricky thing, man, to try and balance. I think ultimately just really trusting God and what he's putting on your heart, and ultimately looking at, and the thing, even when it comes to those interviews we spoke about with Shedeur, it's like, all right, if they look back at that, I wonder, and only they know, right? Can they look back at those interviews and say, did I show up in a way like I'm showing up to interview for God? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To bring, you know what I mean? Did I in those situations? Maybe not, maybe so. I don't know. I don't know what God kind of put on their hearts, but I think that's one thing, one of those areas where it's like, all right, that's an opportunity for growth, or an opportunity to, like a lesson to learn. You know what I mean? So yeah.
That's right. And for all of us, we've got to realize that, like, man, I'm not being viewed the right way here. I'm coming across the wrong way. I've gotten some feedback on that. Where can I make some adjustments? Again, desiring to ultimately please God, because if we're pleasing God, then we're going to come across, according to him. And that's all that matters. And so we have to be careful then, because then we get too far over to the people pleasing. And now all of a sudden we care about the opinions of others, and that's driving our decisions, which may get away from, to your point, living in the call of God and obeying his word and who he's, designed us to be and is leading us to be. And so that has to take priority. And so, but I do think, because I've known Nate a long time, and I know people that know Nate, they speak highly of Nate because Nate's a great guy. Nate's following Jesus, and he's genuine, and he's authentic, and he loves people, and he serves people. So people are going to speak well of Nate. So it's going to be that way. And I hope that that's, the case for me as well. And I desire that. And so that those things should be connected, right? Oh, wow, that guy's like Jesus. He's a follower of Jesus. And so there's an understanding there. The other piece of this, though, is as followers of Jesus, as we continue to seek him, we will be persecuted for our faith. And there will be people that hate us for being followers of Jesus. That's part of the truth in all this too. And it adds to the tension. And so here's where we find this in 2 Timothy 3:12. Yes, and everyone who wants to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will suffer persecution. And then in 1 John 3:13, it adds, do not be surprised, believers, if the world hates you. So there will be outsiders that do hate us, and that's part of the deal. And we're going to face, criticism and people out to get us and all that kind of thing, looking to take us down. And so those opinions will be out there. But again, we care about the opinions of God, how he views us, and us walking faithfully with him. And the other reality is, as we walk faithfully with him, there will be outsiders that also go, there's something different about him. Man, that guy's the real deal. That guy has integrity. That guy's, he's committed to Jesus. There's no question about it. He's very loving. He serves people. He gives. That's who he is. And so if that's not the case, if people are saying that we're arrogant and self-centered and, all these negative things, we got to take a look and go, wait, is there truth there? And sometimes it may be wrong, right? We may be misjudged or all that. But again, it's this: embrace the tension, seek God in the tension, and say, God, show me sort of your path here and help me realize, the truth in all of this. But how people view us does affect things. There's no question. It either leads to persecution, it leads to open doors. If people respect us, now all of a sudden doors open for us to share the gospel. And that's the point. We want people to know Jesus and experience his love and grace and live eternally with him. So we want those doors to open up. So as we follow God and represent him well, those doors should open up. And again, there will also be some persecution along the way too. So there you go. There's a lot of tension. A lot of tension here. A lot of tension.
Man, It's so tricky, man, because like that same belief can have doors shut on you too. You
That's
know what
right.
I mean? And I think also I think that I think that we're all wired differently also too, right? So I think all of us are called to walk, in alignment with our faith and who God has called us to be in our own kind of, I guess, unique way. Obviously still in alignment with the word of
That's right.
God,
That's
but
right.
also he gave all of us certain skill sets, certain, talents, certain passions for a reason, right? And certain ways of communicating, all this stuff like for a reason. Like so even in a situation, where sorry to go back to Shedeur and Dion, but even with a situation where Shedeur and Dion, where the way that they come off may not resonate with certain folks, there's a certain audience that resonates with a lot, and they are bringing other people closer to God because they're firm in who God has called them to be, and so I think that's, like I said, it's always tricky. Like, and at the end of the day, like, a lot of people, Jesus was very misunderstood. Like if we lived in the time when Jesus was there, like I pray that I would have been on the side of Jesus, right? But at the end of the day, he went against what was normal, right? He went against what people would have thought was, oh, this is cool or that's nice. Like, oh man, I want to follow him. Look at how he's carrying himself. Like some people did when they saw him perform miracles and things like that. But it wasn't the easiest thing to do. I think it's a lot easier for us in hindsight right now. So I just feel like our walks. Everybody's walk is a little bit different. Everybody has been kind of put on a slight, the same assignment ultimately to bring others closer to God, but how we go about, living that out and fulfilling the purpose that God has put us on this earth for is a little bit different. And I think that's not by chance, it's by design. So I think that us as believers, we can't get caught in thinking there's one way that following God and following Christ looks, right? At the end of the day, but we understand that there are fruits of the spirit that come when we are in God's word. And those are some common things that we see, but also being a Christian doesn't necessarily look one way. Ultimately, the primary thing is believing and trusting that Jesus Christ came down to earth, lived the human life, died a sinner's death, and rose again for our behalf, right? So we can have eternal life with him. But the way that we go about living that truth out and trusting in him and believing in him, it looks different for different people in different walks of life, right? Different countries, all that, right? So I think that we have to also be a little more open to what a believer looks like and how a believer may behave, because it's not going to always look the same way or feel the same way. Sometimes it's going to feel uncomfortable. Like, man, I wouldn't do it that way. But you know what? Like, you know what I mean? Like you said, multiple things can be true at the same time. So I think that that's something that is a thing for us to check. Also, is like, hey, if I'm looking at something and feel like, oh, that doesn't feel like, I guess like it is bring others to Christ. Like, am I taking a deeper look at it and like also asking myself, like, all right, well, why is that maybe making me uncomfortable? Why don't I feel good about that? Is that something that's just based off my comfort level, or is that really based off this? Right?
That's good.
Is it, you know what I mean? So I think that that's something that we all can check ourselves with in different situations too.
That's right. And we have different personalities and different skill sets and different bents toward certain people. And just like you're aligning to impact the blue collar executives. That's a specific calling for you. And I'm trying to encourage sports fans to follow Jesus. So that's my lane. And so sometimes, and this, you're kind of expanding the conversation, but as far as how we view others oftentimes is misguided and off. And so I appreciate you bringing that aspect to this conversation, because we gotta be rooted in truth, in God's word, and allow some room for people to play the quarterback position differently, right? Not every quarterback's going to play the exact same way. And we're all not going to, minister to people the exact same way and encourage people the same way.
Sure. For sure. So, and I think at the end of the day, man, like God is love, man. And at the end of the day, man, if it's coming from a place of love and like really seeking to, bring out the best in the next person, right? And utilizing whatever gift God has given you to make a difference in the next person's life. I think, if it's coming from that space, God cares about the heart more than anything. You know what I mean? So it's like, if our hearts are right, man, I think that's the core of it all. So I think that, even whether somebody's making a comment about something, whatever the case may be, it's like, is this coming from a place of love, man? It's like, really? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's a big part of it too for all of us, man. And it's something that none of us is perfect. We're all going to fail at it, from time to time, maybe daily, you know what I mean? But it's always like, hey, am I checking my heart and seeing where my heart is in this situation? And am I really seeking to honor and glorify God and help others do the same in the way that, whatever way that He's calling them to do so, not in my way, because I that's way beyond my pay grade, right?
That's
So
right.
it's like,
That's right.
Right, not in my way, but am I trusting God to be God, and am I really seeking to just love on other people, man, and to make the greatest impact I possibly can while I'm here on this earth, man. So yeah.
Amen. That's right. And not wanting to come across like we have all the answers or that we are perfect. No, I want to come across as humble and realizing, man, I need Jesus. I need Him to lead the way, and I'm thankful for Him saving me and continuing to change me. And so that's how I want to come across and have to continue to get realigned in that, right? Because then we can get caught up in ourselves and everything else. So that's part of the tension as well. But ultimately today, my hope is that we can be encouraged, not to live for the approval of others or ride the wave of people's opinions about us, but instead, as we follow Jesus, let's realize that we are being scouted and evaluated. And so if others do view us favorably, let's point them to Jesus. If they persecute us, let's stand firm in Christ. And either way, let's hope that they see Him in us, shining through us. And to Nate's point, the love of God pouring out to others. Is that the case? That's how we want to come across as loving. That's ultimate. So, all right, Nate, final words, man. What were you saying?
No, I said everything we just spoke about, that's putting a bow on it. That's what it's all about right there, man. That's at the core of it all. So yeah, man.
There it is. Awesome. Well, Nate, hey man, great being with you. Always good to see you. And thanks for being a part of the show today.
Thank you as well, man. Always.
Awesome.
Thanks, Bryce.
All right, buddy. There's Nate Salley. Check out audiblecoachingandconsulting.com. For Nate, for Aaron, I'm Bryce. I'm a sports fan who follows Jesus. I believe in the good news that He died on the cross for my sin. He was resurrected, and through faith, I've been saved by His grace. I hope that is true for you as well, and I hope you'll join me as we live life as sports fans who follow Jesus together. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time, right here on the Unpacking It podcast.